sisters. On the 6th of December 1923, Margaret Bonfield, Susan Lawrence and Dorothy Jewson were elected to Parliament. They were the first 3 Labour women MPs. This year marks their centenary, and Labour Women's Network, together with sisters such as Alison McGovern MP, have worked to ensure that, 100 years on, their legacy is marked in Parliament and in our party, including today at Women's Conference. In 1923, there was no roadmap for how to be a Labour woman MP. If women then had accepted that you can't be what you can't see, they would have been sunk. The advice of the first ever woman MP, the Tory Nancy Astor, was to be as inconspicuous as possible. Well, the new Labour MPs were not inconspicuous women. They were active trade unionists with long experience as campaigners for suffrage, for peace, for cooperation, for free school meals, for women's health services, for minimum wage and for much more. Margaret Bonfield had already broken almost every glass ceiling she came up against, including becoming the first woman chair of the TUC. Dorothy Jewson had been a suffragette, and Susan Lawrence had been to prison as part of the Popular Rate Rebellion a couple of years earlier. Before they arrived in Parliament to be sworn in, these 3 women decided to do something which in this country now would pass without comment, but which then was almost revolutionary. At the time, hats were considered obligatory for women in public spaces and were a formal and visible sign of women's inferior place in society. So, when, at the door of the chamber of the House of Commons, the 3 Labour women ceremoniously removed their hats as they entered, it represented a conscious act of resistance to everything the class system and what would now be called patriarchy stood for. They knew that they were there to represent Labour, women, and in particular working class women, and that they were inferior to nobody. In the absence of role models, they made their own image of what a female Labour MP might be. Predictably, the press were not impressed, but the women persisted. And when, in 1929, Margaret Bonfield became the first woman cabinet minister and privy councillor, she declined to wear a hat when being sworn in by the King. Margaret Bonfield, Susan Lawrence and Dorothy Jewson are our history, and we should celebrate them. The banners of justice and equality that we now bear, we inherited from them. Their refusal to be inconspicuous in the face of the unknown, they have handed down to us. As we approach the next phase of our history, we should carry their memory forward and take up our space in the world with as much pride and purpose as they did theirs 100 years ago. Thank you.